Hello everyone, my name is Jason. Thank you so much for watching this video. In this video, I am going to be talking about extroverted sensing. And what I want to do is make a series about each cognitive function at its worst. And so this will be the first video in that series, and it will be on extroverted sensing. So when I say a cognitive function at its worst, what I mean by that is when that cognitive function has gone all in on what it's done and has in some ways seized control of your mind. It has really taken over, the operating system of your brain and is directing all of your steps. So I think that what we tend to see with the cognitive functions when they're at their worst is that it is usually either because it is your first function and you're so addicted to it that you don't even see the ways that it is controlling you, the ways that it is guiding you, and the ways that it is causing you to make bad decisions. Or the other possibility is that this cognitive function may be your fourth function and you're in an overly emotional state, or you're in an imbalanced place where things are just maybe falling apart for you, and you're either being forced to use your fourth function, and so you use it, but maybe not in a way that is beneficial, or maybe in some attempt to overcompensate for the fact that you've gotten yourself in a bad way because of your traditional addiction to your first function. You've now swung the pendulum all the way over to your fourth function. Now you're all in, probably temporarily, on your fourth function, but to a degree, and probably just long enough to do some real damage. So I think that what the cognitive function does at its worst can really come out in either of those situations. But I will say that if the cognitive function is your first function and it's at its worst, you're probably loving it right up to the point where it destroys you. And if your cognitive function is your fourth function and it's at its worst, you're probably really in a bad mood while you're doing what you're doing. So let's talk about extroverted sensing. What does extroverted sensing look like when it is at its worst? Well, I think that when extroverted sensing goes all in to the degree that your brain kind of shuts off and just goes on extroverted sensing mode, it can tend to cause a person to be an adrenaline junkie. It can tend to cause a person to be a thrill seeker, or someone who is always seeking the next new experience. Now, going out and seeking new experiences in and of themselves and in and of itself is not a bad thing. But when you go all in on this to the degree that you don't see where it is causing problems for you, and then you just keep going and you keep going and you keep going, and you will not allow other people to reel you in, or your other cognitive functions, or your brain in general to reel you in, you can really go to some dark and bad places. So what might that look like with extroverted sensing? I could see someone who's all in on extroverted sensing at its worst, trying drugs, not to numb the pain of life like many people do, but just to say, I just want to know what that feels like. Now, regardless of what your position is on drug use, just keep in mind that it alters the mind. It frequently can have damaging effects on the body, and it can lead to relationship problems and financial problems. So, being all in on drug use for no other reason, well, for any reason, can be bad, but especially, or maybe not especially, but in this case, because the person just wants to know what it feels like. It could lead a person to, I would say, like, drive their car ridiculously fast because they just want to know what that feels like, which, again, perhaps in some situations could be fine, not dangerous at all. In other situations could be quite deadly. It could lead a person to be so addicted to the thrill of the new that they go and do things that are not necessarily beneficial to their overall relationship status. That extroverted sensing addiction, or extroverted sensing at its worst, could lead a person perhaps to go from one intimate partner to another, to another, to another, to another, and never be able to settle down with one person or have one relationship, because they always want to feel the rush of the next new person. And you can then extrapolate this out to many different scenarios where a person, for no other reason than that they want to feel the rush of the next new thing, might go and do that to a degree that it then gets that person in some serious trouble. The other thing that I think can be a problem for extroverted sensing when it is at its worst is that it is unable or unwilling to draw any conclusions, make any connections. It sees everything as different, and it can cause problems for people where they're not necessarily able to really put life together and make sense of everything that's going on. They can be confused by things that other people would look at and say, I don't understand why you're not able to see the connection, or you're not able to see the way that this bit of information over here and this bit of information over here fit together to give you an overall picture. Extroverted sensing, when it's all in, just really sees everything is different, and it has trouble making any kind of intuitive connections. And while those who have intuition all in, those people who are using intuition at its worst, oftentimes jump to conclusions without having any sensory data to back it up, those who have extroverted sensing at its worst can gather in an unlimited amount of sensory data and yet never be able to put all the pieces together to make sense of life. And therefore, I think the person who is using extroverted sensing at its worst can go through life drawing illogical conclusions, or refusing to draw conclusions, or just having a very difficult time making sense of what goes on in this world around them. And the last thing that I would say about extroverted sensing at its worst is that it's bored, it's antsy, it's always got to be on the move. It doesn't rest. And one of the problems, or I would say that can really cause a couple of problems. One, I think it can be detrimental to a person's health. Every human being needs to rest. Yes, it is amazing to be a go, go, go kind of person, always on the go, always doing things. Always being able to say, I had a fun-filled weekend with unlimited experiences and I did all these amazing things. But sometimes the body and the brain just need to rest. Sometimes you just need to stop going and going and going, and you just need to take a break. I think because extroverted sensing at its worst is so prone to boredom that it will always, or it can at its worst, always be leading the human being that it is controlling to be active and to not take the time to rest. Not only that can that be damaging to your own body if you are the person in this situation, it can really be damaging to relationships, because you may have close relationships with people who just need a break, who just don't want to go, go, go every single minute of every single day. And that could cause a situation where the person who doesn't want to go, go, go is having to sort of say to the person with extroverted sensing at its worst, I don't feel like it. I don't want to do that. Or they might be making up excuses or even making up lies to get out of it because they just want to rest. And then on the flip side of that, I would see a situation, I could foresee a situation where the person with extroverted sensing at its worst, when they're all in on it, could see other people as being sort of holding them back or tying them down. And then, of course, what I think you would find is then that person who has extroverted sensing at its worst is going to seek out a friendship with someone else who has extroverted sensing at its worst. And the two of them together, if left unchecked, could probably have a whole lot of fun, to be honest with you, but at the same time, probably go down some roads that could lead to some difficult future places for them if they're not careful. Thank you so much for watching. If you have experienced people with extroverted sensing at its worst, people who have gone all in on extroverted sensing and the problems that can cause, comment below and let me know what your thoughts are on this. Please understand these videos are not in any way, shape, or form designed to put down extroverted sensing or any of the other functions that I'm going to be going over, but rather to just take a look at what would happen and what does happen when the extroverted sensing user goes all in on that one cognitive function, really at the cost of everything else. Thank you so much for watching. Do please subscribe. Please click the little like button if you would be so kind as to do so, and have an awesome day. Bye now.